Cue the intro. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Reaper Golf Videos, aka the Central Countess. This is Reaper here, and we have another episode of What's the Bitter Tea? Episode 1 went pretty well. We got, I believe 11-12 views and quite a good bit of comments, so I think that is a good sign. So we're going to continue this with another episode. We'll see how that goes. So today we set up a poll. We looked at the poll and you guys voted for unhinged Historical Karens Self Destructing. So I wanted to get 4 subjects, but unfortunately we could only grab 2. So today we are going to share the nasty of the nasty. So let's introduce our ladies for this episode. Subject number 1 is Baroness from the 1998 Ever After, the stepmother of the midnight hour, the bitch of a stepmother, Reddit's perfect example of a stepmother from hell. And we are not talking about regular hell, we're talking about pure hell, gold digging bitch hell. Next subject is Lydia Quigley. You guys, I am just starting to watch this series, so I do know a little bit of the outcome of this character, but let me just tell you, if this person was a character from modern day times, she'd be wanted by the national government for her crimes. Let me just tell you, this is the mega Karen bitch. You are going to hate her just as much as I hate her, because she represents every danger, every life risk, every chaos, every nightmare that you can imagine. Literally, this woman's a crazy bitch. This woman's a crazy bitch. So, now that we know who we're talking about today, I think we'll save the nasty bitch for last and start with the raging stepmother Karen, Rodmilla from the 1998 Ever After. So to do that, we have to go back into time, because that is basically the head of the episode. We're not in modern day, we have to go back into time. So let's activate the time warp dimension. So, Baroness Rodmilla, for those of you who do not know, she was basically the wicked stepmother in this kind of I don't want to say realistic, like turn of the century Cinderella story. No magic wand, no fairy godmother, no magic pumpkins or talking rodents that would basically cause the demonic plague. So, we don't know too much about Baroness Rodmilla, but I did some research on the style of dresses that she was wearing, and you guys are going to hate me! but I can literally, for the life of me, I cannot remember where, but basically she was, from what I've narrowed down, Baroness Rodmilla came from an area of France that at one time was its own country, but then I can't remember if it was a war or an alliance, or the head guy died, and so they took over the land. Either way, the land became part of France, and then it lost and then the whole country turned from a country to a name of a city. We're going to refer to it as a city. So she was from there, from what I've narrowed down. And again, I apologize. So basically, back where she was, it was basically medieval Las Vegas. From the way I was from my research, this place was like Top Shot, Big Shot, Happy Shot, and then when it finally became part of France, it just became just a regular place to visit in France. It slowly lost its vigor and was slowly drying up. So I have a feeling, I have the time frame right in the film. Baroness Rodmilla must have been a kid or like an early teen when the whole thing changed, where her country turned into this basically insert city somewhere in France, and so she just became part of the French community. Instant citizen, I guess. After a whole country becomes part of one country. A unification, basically, like what happened with China, where all kingdoms just became one whole nation type of thing. You know what I mean? So it was something like that. So I think that, after that, she kind of was accustomed to this, basically, let's spend our money, let's just be spendthrifts, let's just buy every type of shit and just have money to burn. Unfortunately, things started to run dry, the area started to become very boring, and here comes de Barbarac. I can't remember if they ever brought up the guy's name, but all I'm going to say his name was de Barbarac. Daniel de Barbarac's father. He meets her during one of his business trips. I don't know. Obviously, the courtship was not that long, and during his business trip, he marries her. And I'm assuming she accepts the proposal, thinking that she's about to, I'm going to the new big city of France. I'm going to be near the royals. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. You can tell at the very beginning of the intro of this bitch, she's like, this is where I'm living. This is where I'm living, because of her reaction. It's absolutely charming, really. I'm gonna be sick. So anyway, this is Danielle de Barbarac's introduction to her stepmother. And what is her stepmother's first impression? Well, let me tell you about it. The first time she sees Danielle, I keep mixed. I apologize, I might end up accidentally calling Danielle Daniel by accident. So anyway, you know what? Let's just call her Danny. Let's just call her Danny for short. It will be so much easier. And if you want to know more details, watch the film, the 1988 Ever After, with Drew Barrymore and Angelica Houston, who plays the Baroness, by the way. So I digress. I'm straight off subject. So anyway, the first time the Baroness sees her stepdaughter, she's covered in shit. Literally. Beer or shit. So she's getting, in the beginning of the movie, she's all excited. They're trying to make her seem like a little angel, dressed all prim and proper. But then here comes, what's his face? Shit. Okay. Straight off subject. So, she calls him a half-wit, so we're just going to call him half-wit. I hate to say, that sounds awful, but we're just going to call him half-wit. Mr. Half-wit. Because Gustav, there we go, Gustav. His name was Gustav. Gustav is throwing stones in Daniel's window, and he's basically saying, you look like a girl, and then she's like, that's what I am, you half-wit. And then they have an argument. She basically says, either way, she's going to basically beat the shit out of him, even if she's a girl. He's like, oh, I dare you, in his own little way. And then she basically, long story short, she swog hollows him, as Taffy would say, which basically means she basically not only slaughtered him like she said she would, he was covered from head to toe in shit. Just like half her face was covered in shit. So the Baroness's reaction was, I'm dealing with a shithole. And now I have a stepdaughter that reeks of shit, because the first thing she does is, while she's looking at this, she's like, Anyway, I want to say, a few days later, her dad has to go on a business trip. There's this kind of a code, like, departure speech. Well, not a departure speech, just like this Baroness is like, go, the sooner you go, the sooner we can celebrate your return, which in modern day times is, go on, honey, make some money, get those CEOs and clients in the sack. We need more money. I need to buy more purses. I need to buy more jewelry. I need to buy more gowns. That was basically her input. He has a heart attack, falls off his horse, and, there's this whole dramatic music, there's all crying, and the first thing he does is he just looks at the Baroness, and he's like, oh, hell no. And he turns to Danielle, and he expresses, I love you, and then he croaks. And basically the Baroness's reaction is priceless. She realizes, I am a widow. I'm a noble-blooded bitch. I married a baron. I'm assuming he was a baron. Anyway, as I was saying, she was like, okay, I married a baron who basically lives on a farm. The farm looks like shit. The servants are horrible. Right before he left, he said he was going to teach, he told Daddy, my stepdaughter, to teach my girls to basically learn hard labor. I am not fit for hard labor, and now I'm stuck here. Which is probably why she was very over dramatic and start crying her eyes out, saying, you cannot leave me here! You cannot leave me here! I need some water. I need to rehydrate. So a couple of years pass, and she basically turns her stepdaughter into a slave. The whole Cinderella whole bit. She has two daughters, by the way. The Baroness has two daughters, a brunette and a blonde. Guess who's her favorite? So the brunette is Jacqueline, and the blonde is Marguerite, and basically she's training Marguerite to become the next bitch, and the next gold-digging bitch, and she basically puts all of her bets on Marguerite, while she treats Jacqueline like shit, and I guarantee you, I promise you, she is going to regret it later. She is going to regret treating the second daughter like shit. We find out the Baroness has quite the temper. It's like, literally, we're talking about if there's no salt on the table, she goes into Karen mega mode. And even her daughter Marguerite is the same way. If her eggs are not cooked a certain way, she starts screaming up a storm. So basically, everything has gone to hell at the farm. The Baroness has basically spent her widow money, and she still thinks she has money to burn. And just to pay off a couple of her debts, she slowly sells some pieces of furniture. She sells off the servants, like their cattle, and including this old guy that Daniel was... Miss Danny. Miss Danny. We're going to call her Miss Danny. As I said, we're going to call her Danny. Danny was very close to because he was the husband of one of her close maids, and I'm assuming, I guess, her nannies, former nannies, now basically servant ladies, who she's working with as part of colleagues, I guess. So, without spoiling too much, which we've already done, we're going to fast forward to the beginnings of a scam. The Baroness has decided, I don't want to live as a broke-ass noblewoman. I want to live the fruits of my desire, and I am going to the highest of the level. I'm going for the highest of men. Unfortunately, my looks are not that good anymore, so I am trading my daughter, Marguerite, to be the new attractive bitch. That would not only help get us to the riches we want, but basically sustain my spending habits. So they decide they're going to go after the prince. And so basically they do everything from bribing a knight so they can stalk his ass, and so it's like this magical, oh, I didn't know you were here, I was just walking down the street and then I saw you playing tennis and I thought, well, nice. And then they end up, kind of like a hangout with the prince, and then the prince introduces Marguerite to some chocolate, and then Jacqueline, as I said, the Baroness treats her second daughter, Jacqueline, like shit. And Jacqueline's like, ooh, she reaches in, and then the Baroness grabs her hand, and she's like, don't even think about it. And so it's like, basically in her words, don't spoil it, don't kill the mood. There's chemistry, at least what I think is chemistry going on, just I'll get you a Kit Kat bar later on. Just leave it alone. So there's this big news about a ball coming up. So they decide, the Baroness decides, I'm going to steal my stepdaughter's dead mother's dress and let my little baby Marguerite wear it. Daniel catches them, and they make an excuse. Oh, we're just airing out your dress for the mask, and they basically I guess you could say gaslight and manipulate Daniel, who's just hurting for love. She's just hurting for her mother. Because she's literally the Baroness is the only maternal, I guess you could say step-maternal figure, because her dad's dead, she's never knew her mother. This lady is basically her stepmother, so she assumes this is her, they're finally going to accept her and basically welcome her into their little family. So she's all excited, yada yada yada. And then after that plan worked, the Baroness is like, what the fuck am I gonna do? So, Miss Danny's doing her Cinderella thing. She's actually using her mother's name as an alias. If you want to know what I'm talking about, watch the movie. She's and she's slowly falling in love with the prince, yada yada yada, and she ends up doing a late nighter. The stepmother's pissed because it's like she wasn't there to help her with her toiletry and going to bed, so one of the old grannies had to do it. And basically, after a lovely scene of watching this granny take a chamber pot and dump it out the window, hopefully it does not land on somebody's head, because back in those days there was times where houses were built over an underpass and there was a little shithole where they would dump their shit, so if anybody was walking by at the wrong time, they got a shitload or a piss load on top of their heads, maybe a combo of both. After that lovely ambience of hearing piss hit the ground and hearing it splatter out at the pot, the Baroness is like, I want to be informed as soon as she gets home. And the old lady's like, yes, ma'am. Next day, they confront Daniel. Daniel tries to make an excuse. The Baroness is like, I know you're lying. I can feel it. Tell me what you did last night. I know you did something. And then Daniel's like, why don't you tell me what you think it is so I can go back to sleep? Marguerite is like, we're ready about breakfast. And then Daniel's like, you two are two grown bitches. Make it yourselves. The Baroness and her daughter look Karen shocked. Jaw dropped, Karen shocked. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, they also, this one of the nights that the Baroness bribed managed to I don't know how he did it, but he managed to get a hold of one of the Queen's jewelry, the Prince's mom. He managed to get a hold of one of the Queen's necklaces to help impress the royal family with Marguerite. And Marguerite is like, excuse me, your majesty, you dropped this. And so they have a lunch date. They have a lunch date the very next day. The same day where they confront Danielle for coming home late. So later midday, Daniel catches them playing with her dead mother's dress again, and they basically say, oh, it's my, Marguerite is like, it's mine now, bitch. And then Baroness is like, you really think after what you did this morning I'm going to let you go now? So she basically has an excuse to basically say, you're not going to the ball. So Daniel confronts them. She basically tells them off, and then she basically says, these are my mother's things. Marguerite says something shitty, and Danielle gives her the bitch popping she deserves. Unfortunately, the Baroness does something cruel, and basically Marguerite steals her father's book, the last item that she got from her father before he croaked. And she threatens to throw it in the fireplace in exchange for the glass slippers. And because Daniel had a hold of her mother's glass slippers at the time. And then the Baroness is like, you heard her. You either turn over, it's either your father's book or your mother's shoes. But neither will save you from 7 lashes. Basically, she's going to get whipped. So Daniel hands over the shoes, and Marguerite destroys the book either way, and the Baroness holds Daniel down, preventing her from saving the book. Daniel gets whipped, and the stepsister and the stepmother go to the Queen's luncheon, and they come up with some elaborate story how basically Marguerite gets bonked on a hoof by a horse while trying to save a baby. They find out that Danielle is parading around as a noblewoman under her mother's name. And here's the downfall. This is the downfall that causes the Baroness to self-destruction. What you have been waiting for. The self-destruction of this bitch. She ends up basically lying to the Queen. And she tells the Queen that, yes, she's my cousin. She's staying with us. And then she basically tells Marguerite the nickname that she gives Danielle to kind of make her realize who they're talking about. Marguerite goes into a Karen apeshit mode, like after she realizes that Danielle's going after her alleged man that she's basically trying to go dig for. Then later at the ball, the Baroness once again says another lie, and she screws it up because the Queen's there. So, as I said earlier, she tells the Queen that Daniel's alias Nicole d'Elantre, I think that's what the name is, Nicole. So we'll just say Countess Nikki. Countess Nikki is Baroness's cousin. False. She's engaged. False. She's staying with them. Semi-false. Semi-true, because, it's Danielle, so obviously they are living. And living there, staying with her. But actually, she lives there. She's going to be sailing by boat that afternoon to get married. False. And then at the ball, when Daniel shows up, well, Miss Danny shows up, dressed, to the nines in her dead mother's dress, her dead mother's shoes, and a nice pair of fairy wings that Da Vinci made her. Actually, Leonardo da Vinci's in this. So basically, Leonardo da Vinci is the fairy godmother, which makes sense because there's, we're not going to go into that. But anyway, you think, oh, this is perfect, Danielle. Now, Miss Nanny, you better spill the beans to the prince before bullshit happens, because your Karen of a stepmother is somewhere in the winds, and she's going to cause some shit. Sure enough, Miss Danny doesn't spill the beans. She's not basically confessing. And sure enough, the Baroness comes out of the shadows, rips one of Miss Danny's wings off, and exposes her as a servant. So, and the Queen's there. It's like, and you can tell in her expression is like, wait a minute. This bitch told me a whole other story. And, it's like, seriously, she told me other story. This Countess Nicole is her cousin. Now she's saying she's her servant? And, you see this whole dramatic reaction from the Queen as the Prince is falling into the Baroness's scheme. And obviously the Queen herself knows the scam now. Okay, so very next day, Baroness rubs it in Daniel's face, and Daniel just finally says, "I have done everything you've ever asked me to do, and you still deny what I've always wanted." She finally confesses that she's just wanted a mother. She's just wanted a parent. And then she asks the Baroness, "Is there ever a moment you've loved me at all?" And the Baroness just says, "How can you love pebble in your shoe?" And she basically sells Miss Danny to a sleazeball. We're talking about, like, really nasty sleazeball. Oh my god, like, literally nasty of the nasty. A dirty old pervert of a man. Oh shit, I just realized how long this is. Okay, we need to shorten it up. So anyway, it all backfires. Baroness thinks she's won. She gets an invitation to court, and the king asks if she lied to the Queen of France. She's outed. She's in hot water. She's about to be sent to the Americas. Which at the time is still a new beginning land. Basically, it's not as it is now. In fact, it's 100 times worse. But that's a whole other story. Queen says, unless by some miracle somebody can save you. She's looking around. She basically makes a goose. It seems like there's quite a lot of people out of town. Miss Danny shows up and she says, "I will speak for her." Long story short, Miss Danny says, make her a servant bitch to basically clean the dirty sheets for the rest of her life. And the Baroness's self-destruction happens. She ends up losing her title. She loses all of her pretty dresses and jewelry. She's now I guess you could say a linen maid working in a house where you basically wash linens, color linens, etc., etc., etc. And basically, let me just show you what happens. Even though she's a servant now, she's still giving her sass, and then here is her outcome.
How dare you speak to me that way? I'm of noble blood. And you are getting...
3, 2, 1. KO!
Now get to work.
And that is the outcome with the Baroness. Now, on to our next bitch. Our next bitch is the lovely Lydia Quigley. Lydia Quigley, and we have to be very short and sweet with this, is probably if she was a character in modern day times, if her let's just say her tricks of the trade was found out by legal authorities, she'd probably be on America's Most Wanted. She'd probably be the state's main criminal target. Because basically, long story short, Lydia Quigley is a madam. She's a madam of a whorehouse, basically a very fancy harlot house, where she trains her ladies to be rich, sophisticated acting ladies just to get the men in the sheets. And get money for it. And she's rivals with the Wells family, Margaret Wells, who used to be one of her former ladies, and you'll have to watch the series to know a little bit more about it. So Lydia Quigley doesn't just employ girls, she actually traffics them. She basically, there'll be special clients who make special requests for and this is awful, like regular girls who are not part of that world. So she'll trick orphan ladies who are like in their mid or late teens, maybe early 20s, put them in a room, lock them in there, and then when the client comes in, they destroy them. They destroy their lives. They destroy their soul. And that's how we'll stick with that. So she's a very nasty woman. Very nasty woman. One of her former girls is Mary Cooper, who she kicks out for reasons I can't remember if it was mentioned. But at first people thought she had caught the pox in her house, but that was not the truth at all. She caught the pox after she was thrown out. So Margaret Wells keeps Mary Cooper in a special room, trying to convince Mary Cooper to basically be a witness so she can get Lydia Quigley off her ass, because Lydia Quigley is a rival, and not only that, there is a score to settle. Lydia Quigley learns of this, and she tries to start some shit, as always, and Mary Cooper dies from the pox. So they have a nice little funeral service in their way for Mary Cooper, and then they just drop the dead bitch in front of this lady's porch. Lydia Quigley is pissed, so she hires some goons to basically take the corpse, put it in Margaret Wells's new home that she's about to move into, and I think they do something else to the body. I think they gut it, because this body has been there for a couple of days, and it's oozing. It looked like it looked like it's been gutted. And we're not going to go into too much graphic detail, because like I said, we're on a time frame here. We spent too much time on the Baroness, so we're trying to keep this less than an hour. Okay. So there's a Karen war that happens, and it gets worse. Lydia Quigley gets involved in some very bad stuff, and she feels guilty about it. You can tell that there's a little bit of guilt, but the money is just too good. And let me see, and then finally, so her son is kind of in love with this bad influence girl. Lydia beats the shit out of her, does all this stuff to her, and she has her son wrapped around the finger, in fact. And then whenever her son starts to grow into the spine, she's like, if I just kept my daughter instead of you, I guarantee you my daughter would have been more grateful. So she literally sold her own kid. She sold one of her own kids. So obviously there's a possibility that Lydia has two kids instead of just a son. So she had a daughter. So far, I can't recall if there was ever any mention if that daughter is still around, or if that daughter ever made an appearance. We're not that far in the series. But I will admit, we are a little bit further in, but not as deep. So we know what happens a little bit, just not the final episode season. So she finds out Margaret Wells is in jail, trying to save her daughter from a murder plot, and she wraps the judge around her finger and convinces him to basically illegally hang her, which happens. I don't know how he pulled the strings, but it happens. But she doesn't really get killed. Her death is fake. The guy who basically was in charge of it knew what she was trying to do, was trying to save, and just saved her by basically saying, everybody has to know you're dead, you got to go to America. And it's sad. It's really sad. So the family finds out that she's alive, but she can't come back. She can't come back. So basically they decide, we're going to destroy Lydia Quigley, and here's where the downfall happens. So Lydia's evil schemes, trying to take on the Wells, trying to destroy people, backfires. Her son is like, I am so sick of it. I'm giving you multiple chances. Please stop. Please stop. Please stop. She promises A, B, and C, and she breaks the promises every time. So he has her committed. She's dragged off screaming. He takes over. Him and the bad influence girl take over Lydia's brothel, and basically this is her downfall. She basically ends up in an asylum, and she basically goes through a special treatment that looks like the early version of a merry-go-round. Let's show the clip, shall we?
Give you the rotational chair.
Please. No, please.
She will be spun for 2 hours or more.
And that concludes our episode of The Bitter Tea. I hope you enjoyed. I apologize that the Lydia Quigley bit was a little short and tight, but like I said, I am still watching the series. I know only little bits here and there of what I've seen, but basically either way, she was a historical Karen who basically caused her own self-destruction. As you saw, she's basically strapped by the forehead, wrists, and ankles to a chair and basically spun in front of an audience like a merry-go-round in an asylum. So please like, subscribe, hit that bell, leave me comments. If we get as much comments as we did in episode 1, for this episode, we will do another episode of What's the Bitter Tea. So until then, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye!